Saludos. So if you've watched my first 3 videos, you now know how to pronounce all of the letters in Spanish. But you might still be asking yourself, wait, but how do I know which syllable to stress? La sílaba tónica, ¿cómo se encuentra? So the question is will this, you know that this is o, ri, hi, nal. You know that this is re, gu, lar. But how do you know if it's original, 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 or original? How do you know if it's regular, regular, or regular? So it's a little tricky, but with practice you get it pretty quickly. So first things first, if a word has an accent mark written on it, you're going to stress that syllable, that vowel that has the accent mark. So for example, lápiz, pencil. Autobús, another word for guagua, for bus. Lápiz, autobús, doesn't matter what else you know about the word, you're going to put that stress on the syllable with the accent mark. Imagínate, imagínate. 16. It doesn't matter that there are 2 vowels here. What matters is that they combine into one syllable. So that syllable is the one that gets the stress. And you might be wondering, well, why is the accent mark on the E instead of on the E? If you put it on the E, then it will break apart into 2 syllables, and it will become 16, which is not how we say it. 16. Estás, accent mark. So you stress the A, not the E. Estás, not estas, which is a different word. Adios, same story as 16. If you put it on the I, you end up with adios, which is not what we say. We say adios, with the stress on the yo, on the o in that combination. Not on the a. It's not adios, it's adios. Cómodo, rápido, and also útil bring us to an example of the one exception that we have. In general, if a word has an accent mark, it is stressed where that accent mark is written. No question, no confusion, no problems. Lápiz, never lápiz. Autobús, never autobús or autobús. Imagínate, never imagínate. Well, maybe if you speak with voz. 16, never 16. Estás, if you mean this word, it's never estas. Adiós, cómodo, rápido, útil. There is one exception. These adjectives, cómodo, comfortable, rápido, fast, útil, useful, they have adverb forms where you take the feminine form ad mente. We're not going to worry about that today, but just know that they keep their accent mark when you write them, but when you pronounce them, cómodamente, rápidamente, útilmente, the stress goes on the mente. Just as you would expect with any word that ends in mente, or even the word mente itself, the accent mark is preserved at the beginning just because it is, just for tradition, just so that you don't forget that it was there in the adjective form, I guess. So you don't need to worry about it, really. There are not many adverbs that have this. Most of the words that end in mente don't have an accent mark anyway, so it's not going to come up that often. These are the only 3 I can think of off the top of my head. There are probably, another dozen out there in the entire dictionary, but it's not super common. In general, accent mark means stress that syllable. But that leaves all of the words that don't have accent marks. So the first thing to know is if a word ends in a, e, I, o, or u, one of our vowels, or if it ends in an N or an S, an N or an S, then you will stress not the last syllable, but the next to the last syllable. And I can tell that some of you are already thinking, how am I going to remember that? Well, N, S, or a vowel, these are the letters that our verbs usually end in when they're conjugated. when someone's actually doing the action. So hablo, hablas, habla, hablamos, hablan. You notice they end in an N or an S, and it's not the last, but the next to the last syllable that is stressed. Doesn't matter if it's a command form, hable, or a subjunctive, or hablo present tense, or hablaste past tense. Even if you put an S on that one and say, as some people do, hablastes, still the next to the last syllable because it still ends in an S. So, but in general, if a word ends in a vowel, a, e, I, o, or u, or enne, or esse, you're going to stress the next to the last syllable. So this word is derecho. Notice that with plural words, like leyes, laws, because it ends in an S, we stress the next to the last syllable. Derecho, right, it's both the adjective for on the right and also right as in like human rights, derechos humanos. Derecho, singular, add an S, derechos. It's still stressed on the next to the last syllable. The word ley doesn't end in an N or an S or a vowel, the word for law, but when you make it plural, leyes, still stressed on that syllable. Hombre, man, make it plural, hombres, doesn't change. It's still going to go in the same place. Libro, libros, next to the last syllable. Izquierda, izquierda. So this word is only 3 syllables. Izquierda. The I and the E and the E mush together into one syllable. So you just have izquierda. So it ends in an A, which is a vowel, so it's going to be the next to the last syllable, the yeah. Furioso, angry, furious. It's going to be the same sort of thing. The I and the E and the O mush together into one syllable. So that's the syllable that gets stressed. Now, if a word ends in anything else, like an L or a J, L, J, D, R, Y, for example, you should stress on the last syllable. So it could be a 2-syllable word like real, royal. We don't stress the re, we stress the al. Leal, loyal, we stress the al. Igual, only 2 syllables. It's not igual, igual. The u and the a mush together into one syllable, but that's the syllable that you stress, igual. Papel, last syllable. Reloj is just about the only word that ends in jota that you're going to come across. There are 2 or 3 others in the dictionary, but I don't even remember them because you don't see them that often. But the word for watch or clock is pretty common, so reloj. We don't so much pronounce that J. I mean, you can try to pronounce it and say reloj. Fine, go for it. Notice that when you make these sorts of words plural, relojes, of course, when it's plural, you'll pronounce it. Now, you've had to add a whole new syllable by adding the ES. So it's still the same syllable that's stressed. Same way with papel. If you make it plural, papeles. Now it ends in an S, but you've added a syllable to the end, so it's the same syllable that gets stressed. Papel, papeles. All of the dad and tad words, igualdad, humanidad, libertad, lealtad, loyalty, all stressed on the last syllable because they all end in a D. All of our infinitive verbs end in an R, so the vast majority of them are stressed on the last syllable. Comer, I'm sure you know is to eat. Hablar, I'm sure you know is to speak or talk. Escribir, to write. Vomitar, I'm sure you can guess what that means. Estornudar, to sneeze, all stressed on the last syllable, estornudar. It's not estornudar or estornudar. Estornudar, vomitar, escribir, hablar, comer. If you have a word that is more than 1 syllable, ley has, a Y on the end, but it's only 1 syllable, so it's not a great example. But a word like estoy, 2 syllables, it's not estoy, it's estoy. The stress goes on that last syllable. So in general, in Spanish we can't end a word with absolutely every letter. Spanish words don't end in with a T, for example, except for robot, which is borrowed directly from English and is a weirdo. They don't really end in a K sound. They can end in the syllable K, or ki, I suppose. But they don't really end in just the consonant K. So, but if it ends in one of these or some other consonant that I'm forgetting, as long as it's not an R or an S, you're supposed to stress that last syllable. If it ends in a vowel or an S or an N, then you will stress the next to the last syllable. If it violates one of those rules, it should have a written accent mark. So you see that útil, it ends in an L. We should pronounce it útil, but we don't say útil, we say útil. Rápido, it should be rapido, but we don't say rapido, we say rápido. Cómodo, it's not stressed on the last syllable. It's not stressed on the next to the last syllable like it should be according to the rule, since it ends in an O, which is a vowel. It's stressed on the sílaba esdrújula. It's stressed, 3 syllables in. 2 syllables from the end, so cómodo. Adiós ends in an S. It should be stressed on the A, but it's not, so we say adiós. Estás should logically be stressed on the E, but it's on the A. So estás, write an accent mark. 16 ends in an S, should be stressed on the E in the middle, but it's not. So 16, accent mark is written. Imagínate should be imaginate, but it's not, so we write an accent mark. Autobús, it's not stressed on the O, which is the next to the last syllable, so we write autobús. The plural, incidentally, drops the accent mark because it ends in an S. When you add the ES, you've added another syllable, but it still ends in an S, so it should be stressed on the next to the last syllable, and it is, autobuses. So the plural of autobús, autobuses, doesn't have the accent mark. Lápiz really should be lápiz, but nobody says that. It's lápiz. Notice that when you make it plural with that one, and you say lápices, lápices, okay, the Z changes to C because we can't have ZES, but now it ends in an S. The syllable should fall on the E, but it doesn't. It still falls on the A. So instead of lápices, it's lápices. So it still gets the accent mark, even when it's plural. That's not the only reason why a word may have an accent mark. You'll see words like solo or donde that have accent marks, and you say, wait a minute, it's stressed on the next to the last syllable. So why is there an accent mark? Never mind. That's a question for another day. We'll talk about why to write accent marks down the road. But for the time being, you know that if you see one, that's where the stress goes on the word. If you don't see one, you have to look at the last letter. If it ends in a vowel or an N or an S, simple, next to the last syllable. If it ends in anything else, simple, last syllable. So back to our original 2 examples. How should we pronounce that first word, the Spanish word for original? Well, it ends in an L, which is not an N, it is not an S, it is not a vowel. So it should be original, with the stress on that last syllable, original. Same way with regular. That R is not an N, it is not an S, and it is not a vowel. So the stress should fall on that last syllable, regular. ¿Hay preguntas? No, claro que no. Also, you see in the name of the lesson, sílaba tónica. Both of those words end in a vowel. It should be sílaba, but it's not. It's sílaba, syllable. It should be tónica, but it's not tónica, it's tónica. So there you go. Written accent mark, and when you see that word, oh yes, must pronounce it sílaba. Must pronounce it tónica. Easy peasy, no problems. Now, if you've watched all 4 videos, you should have no difficulty in pronouncing absolutely any word in the Spanish language if you see it written. Spelling it may be a bit more challenging. We'll work on some of that later. Ciao.